All right, so here is where we're starting. We're gonna do a low taper, bald this out. You can kind of see that he keeps up with his hair, especially because you can still see all the framework. So we're just gonna tighten this back up. This looks like it could be up to like 1.5, 2. So we'll keep that so you get a nice contrast. I'm gonna be using the newest system from Babyliss Pro. This is our FXONE LoPro edition. Basically, it's a whole new battery system that makes it super simple because you get to use this one battery that will plug into different types of clippers, trimmers, and foil shavers. Similar to a Snap FX battery, but the Snap FX battery only worked for that specific clipper. This whole new system gives you the ability just to use one simple battery for all of your tools. There's an arrow here, which you're gonna match with this arrow here. We're gonna plug this in. And now with the new battery indicator light, instead of having it on the body, you now get it on the bottom. So all you have to do is press this. It gives you 4 panels of lights letting you know how much battery you have left. All right, so whenever I'm doing any kind of skin tapers, something that I remember I struggled with in the beginning was I started low and I just started pushing my lines up, not knowing where to stop. So in this technique I'm gonna show you, it's gonna be about keeping your guidelines more organized so that you don't get lost while you're doing the blend. All right, so same thing with the trimmers. I'm gonna load this in. A cool little tip I like to do sometimes is I do a double edge up. In the beginning, before I get started, it keeps everything nice and clean so that I can see all of my guidelines. And then I go again and do a second pass at the end just to refine and get any last minute hairs that are sticking out. Brushing this all down, just using just the tip of this, and I'm gonna use it like a pencil, and I'm gonna get that edge. But I'm also making sure that I'm not going past his natural hairline. I don't wanna push back any of the hairs. I'm using just 2 to 3 teeth from my trimmer blade, just to create that little edge. And I'm gonna do the same thing right around the ear. We never wanna create white walls is what you call it when they take it up too far and it's super, super light on the scalp. We wanna keep it really close to the natural. So anytime I push the ear down, you wanna see a nice little C-scoop just in this area. I'm trying to match this point here to this point here and get a nice clean C-scoop. Using again, just the front of this blade. But what also makes the tools good is that you set them up ahead of time when you get anything fresh out of the box. I spent about a good 10 minutes to set all my blades to make sure I have them exactly how I want them. All right, so now that we have those clean lines in, this is a first pass of the edge up. So this now just gives me more visual of a cleaner section that I can work with. I'm gonna start with my first guideline using my trimmers. I like to tackle the skin portion first. That's gonna be the most difficult part of the blend itself. First step is I'm gonna create my guideline. I keep it really low, right? Because we're gonna be doing a low mid taper here. With zero gap trimmers, because they are adjusted very close, I love being able to use them upside down versus having them sit on the skin because this is gonna be a lot more aggressive. Especially with these hairs that I'm gonna be removing with a foil shaver, I want to just gently raise this on the skin by turning this upside down. Now I'll be using our new Babyliss Pro UV foil shaver. In between clients, all you gotta do is put this on. The UV light comes on, killing 99.9% bacteria from your tools while it's sitting on your station for about 1 minute. I just ran the trimmer, so I'm gonna follow that same exact path using my foil shaver. And when you're using a foil shaver, this is gonna make the haircut last a little longer because now instead of leaving it at a trimmer stubble length, you're gonna take this all the way down flush to the skin. As I move up to where I'm gonna blend my haircut, so what you're gonna do is as you move up to the line, you're gonna pull away just a little bit, almost like you're fading, just to lighten up that area. Now we're gonna start with our clipper work. I'm gonna create a new guideline. The hardest part is gonna be this next section of blending clipper to trimmer to foil shaver. I always start all the way open first. And whenever you're doing tapers and fades, there's different styles of it. So with super long stretch blends, you're gonna take bigger sections. Because we are doing more of a tighter condensed style, we're gonna take smaller sections. So on our clipper, we got 5 locking detents, right? And we're in our first one. Now we're gonna drop this down to the next one. Step by step, you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what that's gonna do is gonna keep your blend super consistent all the way through. So now going into 2, we're gonna work right below our last previous area. And from here, pretty much what I'm doing is I set my stopping point, which is my longest length. And now I'm gonna work everything back down into that previous section before I move on. And this is gonna help me stay really organized in my blends and not have to chase those lines higher and higher. So number 2, we're gonna work up to where we finished off. Again, number 3, we're gonna work right below that. And as I get to my 4th and my 5th detent, it's getting lower and lower, connecting that previous guide all the way into our clipper guide. Once I get most of the bulk done, I'm going back in now to do a technique called corner cutting. And what that means is I'm gonna be using just the corners to really fine tune the hair. Every head shape isn't gonna be round, so this is an area where you're gonna have to pinpoint what parts need to be cut and not cut by using corner cutting. So I have this on a corner. I'm using just 2 to 3 teeth. And whenever I'm doing, especially like fades and tapers, I'm always checking and looking at it from different angles, letting the light hit that section, because you're gonna be able to see different shadows in the hair, especially with different head shapes and different densities. This is really important. And I'm going back in just to fine tune any of those areas. All right, so now I'm gonna grab my number 1 guard. I'm skipping over the half because we do have an extended lever on this tool, which means it goes up to about a 1.5. So now that we finished the number 1, I'm going back in now with my clipper, no guard, all the way open. Because we have this extended lever, this gives me a lot of control to be able to connect, especially super tight blends like this, where you have a lot of contrast and the blending zone is a lot tighter. With a blade like this, you're able to really fine tune those areas just in your angles. So we're doing a 90-degree angle here. And this is a way for me to make sure I don't take off too much. And I'm almost point cutting with the clipper. And as I need to take more off, all I have to do is rotate this flatter and flatter to take more off. This is gonna be a cool little shortcut because then I don't have to switch between so many guards. All I have to do is rotate my tool. Now this is where I'm going to do my second pass of re-edging all the areas again. Now I can really brush all the hair down, see if anything sticks out, and really add in my last final touches to that edge up. All right, so now that I've have the side lined up, another thing I like to do is refine it even more. This is the difference between good barbers and great barbers. So even though it looks clean, I can take this one step further. I'm gonna start with my trimmer first, being able to get as tight as possible on that bottom part of the taper. So I'm trying to bring in that condensed part, bringing in that blend even closer. Grab my foil shaver. Instead of going bottom to top, I'm gonna go from top to bottom. I'm using this as a way to just graze over those stubbles to really bring that tighter. And I'm pretty much just tapping on those hairs and pushing it back down. So if you listen to it closely, you'll be able to hear where the foil is picking up the hair. And it's really not gonna be a lot, it's just the few at the bottom. By just those little details, you're pushing that tight blend even closer together. So visually, it actually looks more bunched, and that's just from adding those little details of bringing that foil shaver as tight as possible to the rest of the hair. And the cool thing with doing more of these styles of these like low mid tapers is that you're generally keeping this area really dark. So this from a distance looks a little bit enhanced, right? Because you have that dark edge with this really tight blend. But if we brush this hair, you can tell that it's not going away. It's something that preserves that shape up that they have that'll last them for a while. So same thing, we're gonna follow through that hairline and go into the back. Now before I even tap into doing the edges on the back side, I always want to look at natural hairline and proportion of the neck. I don't want to go too narrow, I don't want to go too wide, I want to make sure it fits just right. Also a cool little hack, since we just finished this area here and this is all done, typically in a barbershop, we are facing this area that we're working on against the mirror. So a cool way that I used to get clients while I was in the shop was being able to do that part, now turn them around facing the people in the waiting area that are waiting for a haircut, And now I'm working on this side, which allowed me to get more clients while I was working. So now if you can tell right here, this is a natural growth pattern that we're trying to blend out completely. Everyone has a different natural pattern, and this is where it gets fun with barbing because we're trying to create that smooth, nice blend on every head shape, on every hair density that we're working with. The most consistent across is gonna be in this area here, so that's gonna be where our skin line is gonna go right above that because we're gonna get rid of this natural hairline right here. Again, we're gonna do the same thing on this side. We're gonna do the pre-edge, and then we're gonna do it a second time at the end. And what I like about the FXONE, so the blade that's actually on this trimmer, this says Blue FX, but it's also a DLC 2.0 that you guys may have known in the past. What I've loved about these blades is that they're good for removing bulk, any kind of thickness, and also being able to use that same blade, DLC 2.0, as a way to also do my edge ups. So you get the best of both worlds with this blade. It's something that I put on all my trimmers, but now you get it in a blue edition with the new FXONE system. Now when I'm creating my guideline, very similar to what I did on the side. Now you have a bigger platform to work with because now you're seeing it on a wider scale. Also, this is a really good area to practice tapers and fades if you are getting into it and it's very new. This is a bigger platform for you to see all your guidelines versus here, you're focusing on a very small, tight area, which also will help you translate what you can do in a small space on a wider space. And then you can take this to the next step, which is on a fade level, being able to do it on a full head. So typically I always tell people to practice doing tapers because it's gonna get you the muscle memory that you need in order for you to be able to understand it on a full scale. Even in this area, I create my guideline softly and then I turned it upside down and I removed all the hair that I needed. Same thing with our foil shaver. I like to use one side. The reason why I like to turn this upside down is because I get to focus only using one foil versus using double. If he was doing a whole head skin fade, then I would use this to cover more ground as I'm removing all the hair. But because we're just fine tuning this spot right here, I only need that one foil just to really help me fine tune exactly where I want it. So in this area here, all the hair is growing this way, so now I'm going against it. And that's why you'll be able to see me move this in different directions. Again, on this side goes this way. So we're gonna go the opposite way. So to get the closest shave with using a foil shaver is that you're really looking at the hair patterns on the area that you're working on. When the hair is growing this way, your best way to get it as close as possible is to move against that hair pattern. So this is a way for you to really fine tune your blends by making sure you're looking at those details and knowing what direction to maneuver your foil shaver to get that tightest possible results that you're looking for. So now we're gonna continue on the same way that we did with our clipper work. We're gonna start with all the way open. Now here, I can take my blend, my guideline stretch a little bit wider than what we did on the taper. The taper, I was really particular because I wanted to keep everything very condensed, but now we're gonna stretch out this blend a little bit more, so our guidelines are gonna be a little bit bigger. That's gonna be the width of my guidelines, about a 1/2 inch. When it comes to creating guidelines, knowing if you're gonna go super tight guidelines or super wide guidelines depends on what kind of blend you want. If you want something more stretch, you want to have bigger guidelines. If you want something more condensed, heavier contrast, dark at the top, very light at the bottom, but it's short, you're going to do shorter guidelines. So here we're going to hit that in between by doing a 1/2 inch guideline, which is pretty much half of this comb. This whole comb is probably closer to 1 inch of space. So doing half of that, you're gonna get about your 1/2 inch. So whatever my initial guideline is, if I go straight across, I wanna make sure everything that follows that guideline stays straight across. Everything's very parallel and consistent because we don't want that blend to look choppy in any way. We want it to be completely smooth. So we're gonna follow that shape. So what is the difference between doing straight lines versus curved lines? That's gonna be a preference depending on the barber and the style that the client wants. Typically, when you go straight across, you have an evenness in your edges. For people that do the half moon shape guidelines, that's because they want really strong edges. And that's the difference when you are doing your guidelines between going straight or more curved. When you were seeing it on the taper, it was really hard to tell, but now you can really see my guideline that I'm setting. Doing the open guard, creating that guideline, you can see that space where I stopped. This is letting me know don't go past that point. So now from here on down, this is the only focus that I'm gonna be working on, is blending this section into this previous guide. This is gonna be the hardest part of the blend because this is where it's gonna connect into your foil shaver. That super fine line is what people struggle with the most, so this is the area that we're gonna work on next. We're gonna go steps all the way down, 1 through 5, and blend everything back down. Now, something to look for as you're doing this too, because we are working on the back of the hair, this is where all the crazy growth patterns are, is this hair in particular right here in this middle, his hair grows this way. So if I only go this way, you're not gonna always cut the hair. So in that section, I'm using just the corner, just to go against the grain, or at least cross-cutting it, just so I can make sure I get it. Because if the hair pattern is aggressively growing one direction and we're going up, the clipper pretty much is gonna miss that entire hair because of the way it's being pushed out. So you have to make sure you get those by using corner cutting, so that everything still looks as consistent as possible. So now we're gonna go all the way 1 through 5, similar steps as we did before, and we're gonna blend everything back down. So now that we finished that part, you can kind of see now everything's kind of blended into that previous section. So now we're gonna go ahead and go with our number 1 guard. Now it looks like I'm using the whole blade, but I'm just using those corners. Depending on where I'm at in the haircut, it could be the left side, it could be the right side. Now this is where I'm gonna use my clipper all the way open, using that extended lever to be my half guard. And now we're gonna connect this in between right here. So here's another area of the foil shaver that you can use. Because we're using just that one foil, any area, especially right around the side of the ear or the side of the neckline right here, I'm gonna use just that edge just to bring it closer. Like, you're not gonna get a full clean line the way you would get with a razor, but it'll take you a lot closer. I'm gonna bring all that hair in up to that line. And this will tighten up just like all of the edges right here. We're gonna do the same thing with the other side. I never do a haircut without a foil shaver. It's always an essential part of the process for me, because even if they do get something that's blocked off, I still want to get that edge underneath it really nice and tight. They might not ask for it, but it's something that they're going to notice if you go ahead and do that. This is usually my favorite part of the cut, is the reveal. Sometimes you're just sitting there for a whole time frame without knowing what's going on, but check that out. Let's see.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Sofie did it again. That's good.
You see the back?
I love it. Yep. That's good.
No pushback?
No pushback. We love that.